Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here. Guys, there are two industries that are pretty much unaffected by tariffs, who the president is, inflation. Doesn't really matter. These two industries stand alone because they create their own industry. There is no real industry where they exist, so they lie and they make that up. You want to know what those two industries are? It's the anti-gun movement and the race hustling movement. They can find something where there's nothing in everything. And they're very good at it. And they make a lot of money at it, or else why else would they do it? Look, let's make no mistake. The anti-gun movement and the race hustling movement only do it for the money. They don't care about people. They honestly don't. That is the last thing they care about. Is anybody affected by any of the things that they make up and make lies about? Well, we're seeing one of those movements really struggling right now to make it look like they have a cause, but they're sure trying.
Tragic case that's gained national attention and hit home for a lot of parents. The fatal stabbing at a high school track meet in Frisco. One teen died and another is behind bars, claiming he did it in self-defense. NBC5's Maria Guerrero has the new details.
There are incredibly difficult days ahead for Austin Metcalf's family as they prepare to lay him to rest. Meanwhile, his accused killer remains here behind bars at the Collin County Jail, his family preparing his defense. Retained this morning, defense attorney Derek Walpole agreed to speak on behalf of Carmelo Anthony's family.
I know that my client said that it was self-defense. I don't have any reason to disbelieve that, but I needed to develop facts and talk to people and figure out what's going on before I make any statements about what I think happened. I don't have any reason to think it wasn't self-defense at this time.
Walpole will seek to lower Anthony's $1 million bond next week. Wednesday morning's deadly encounter at Kirkendall Stadium, witnessed by about 40 student athletes and a handful of coaches as detailed in arresting documents, sparked, witnesses said, when Memorial High School junior Austin Metcalf told Carmelo Anthony to move from underneath Memorial's pop-up tent that was being used during a downpour. Witnesses said Anthony, a Centennial High School student, immediately opened his bag, reached in, and told the victim, "Touch me and see what happens." When Metcalf pushed him, witnesses said Anthony pulled a black knife from the bag, stabbed Metcalf in the chest, and ran away. While no school resource officers were inside the stadium, one was nearby. City police also rushing in, covering the knife with a blue tarp. Caught nearby, Anthony reportedly admitted to officers, "I did it. He put his hands on me. I told him not to," before asking officers if it could be considered self-defense and if the injured teen was going to be okay. The victim lay dying in his twin brother's arms. Grateful for the outpouring of support, Metcalf's mother, Megan, releasing a statement to NBC5 today saying, "Tragedies inevitably raise questions that remain unanswered. We will entrust the detectives handling the investigation to determine the circumstances surrounding Austin's passing, while our family, Hunter and I, prioritize commemorating and honoring Austin."
So when you hear all of that, the first thing you think of is this poor Metcalf kid, right? I mean, a normal person, regardless of culture, race, age group, political affiliation, class, it doesn't matter. A normal person spread out across the entire area of this country would look at this and go, Metcalf appears to be the victim and Anthony appears to be the bad guy. Well, not so fast, because some people are just in it for the money. Again, before I go into the actual facts, I would like to point out that there are no less than, at this point, 12 different types of GoFundMe fundraising accounts to try to get money for Carmelo Anthony. Here's some of them. Some of them aren't doing too great, and these are probably spam accounts anyway, just trying to hustle and make a little bit of money. But some of them are doing pretty good. You can see on the far right, one of them, Dolores Martin, got $735 so far given to her. But look over up towards the top of that, $13,500. Not bad for a scam. But look at this one. Help Carmelo Official Fund, $123,000. It says this is the official support fund for Carmelo and his family during this challenging and difficult time. Now, I have to be really honest. It's definitely, I'm speaking from a person who doesn't have a dog in the fight. It's certainly a challenging and difficult time for the family, right? I mean, I don't know anything about the family. I don't. Don't know if they're still married. Again, I say that because most people committing crimes, 70 to 80% of them don't have a father in the home. Again, I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm telling you statistically what is usually the case. But no matter what, a very difficult time for this family, because if they're doing a good job and the right thing trying to raise their son, which I have suspicions about because most young people who are afraid to get that butt stomped for doing something stupid would never have brought a knife to something like this, a school function, nevertheless used it. Anyway, not knowing the family's approach here, they're going to have a difficult time because this young man is, even though they appear to be making money off of it right now, he's got a long road ahead of him. I don't think the court system, I hope the court system is not kind to him if the facts bear out as we see them so far. And the facts are out there. Now, let me just say this. I'm not alleging anything. I've actually got the police report and everything that I'm going to share with you today. So I think we have a pretty good picture of what happened, including witnesses that are going to have full testimony in all of this. So I don't think it's like this happened out somewhere where nobody saw it and it's his word against his word. There's a lot of people that witnessed this, a lot of people that overheard it, a lot of people that actually saw it. We're talking about adults and coaches who witnessed the entire thing. So more on that here in a second. In a nutshell, I'm going to recap real quick. Witnesses say Metcalf was sitting under his school's tent in the bleachers. It was starting to rain a little bit at that point, so I think that's where a lot of these students were congregating under their team's own tent at this track meet. Anthony came over to their tent, which was an opposing school. Metcalf told Anthony to leave. Anthony then grabbed his bag and reached inside, telling Metcalf to, quote, touch me and see what happens. This was according to the police report that I will show you. Nobody in the area thought that or assumed that Anthony had a weapon on him or in his bag. One witness said Metcalf touched Anthony and another says he grabbed Anthony. Anthony immediately pulled a knife out of the backpack and stabbed Metcalf in the chest. Anthony then fled the scene. He actually threw the knife too, so that's another thing. I mean, if I'm defending myself as he claims, do I throw my weapon that I defended myself with away, or do I keep it in order to comply with local law enforcement? Metcalf then grabbed his chest, told his teammates to get help before he passed away in his brother's arms. Anthony was caught by police, and the police said that they had the alleged suspect, at which point Anthony said, I'm not alleged, I did it. Once inside the police cruiser, Anthony asked if Metcalf was okay and asked if what he did would be considered self-defense. I've got two comments on that. First of all, I'm really trying to be fair here. And I will say this. Anthony was wrong based on everything I've seen, all the evidence. He did, you hear a lot of people say, oh, he was non-remorseful. He did ask if the kid was okay. I'm sure it bothers him. I mean, I know there's stone cold killers out there that don't care. But I do believe this young man was trying to flex and act like a badass. And he acted on impulse and immediately regretted that. Immediately, by asking if the boy was okay. I'm sure it is probably tormenting him. In fact, the police report says later on that he was crying like a baby. They didn't say like a baby, but I'm just saying, I don't know what the words they used, but said as he was being led away, he was crying profusely. So it sounds like there's a level of remorse there, like, I just crossed a line that I didn't want to cross, and I crossed it anyway. And I think the weight of all that was falling back on him. Now, they also said in the same breath that he asked if what he did would be considered self-defense. I'm not so sure about that. In fact, if the facts are accurate as they bear out, and these witnesses that are yet to come forward with official statements, if they actually corroborate what's in this police report, he's going to have a really tough time claiming self-defense. He went over to the opposing tent. He initiated this thing. We talk about it all the time. If you have a concealed carry firearm, or if you're just carrying a firearm on you, you don't go initiate something, because you will go to jail if you end up having to use your firearm. You understand what I'm saying? You can't go to a function like this, and I know you're not supposed to have a gun there, so let's take it away from the school property, okay? You're going to a barbecue somewhere, and you're carrying your firearm. You can legally carry it there. This kid was not legally carrying a knife, by the way. That was illegal. So he broke a law just by having that there, as far as not supposing to have anything on school property. Gun-free zone, remember? Knives apply to that too. So if you go to a barbecue and you're carrying your firearm with you, and you go up to somebody at a different table from where your people are sitting, when I say people, that is not a race thing. I'm talking about yo people, like my family. If you go to somebody else's family and just plop down, they ask you to leave, you don't leave, and then you say, touch me, and you're going to find out. If they touch you and then you pull your gun and shoot them, the courts will not look kindly on you. They will say, what? Did you fear for your life? And did you have an opportunity to leave? This young man, Anthony, certainly did not fear for his life because he went to the tent. That's the opposite of what you do when you fear for your life. Then he provoked the young man when the young man, I don't care how he told him to leave. Asked, told, doesn't matter to me. He was told or asked to leave, refused to, and said, touch me and you'll see what happens. I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. Then the other man touched him, the other young man, touched him, pushed him, grabbed him. Doesn't matter. He was provoked at that point. He was dared. I double dog dare you to touch me and you'll see what happened. So the guy called his bluff, touched him. The kid reaches into his backpack, pulls a knife out, and murders him. That was not self-defense. Again, when he got shoved after he said, touch me and you will find out, he had another chance to leave and chose not to. He chose to stay. Then he made the choice to grab his knife. Then he made the choice to use the knife. That's not self-defense. I don't care who you are or what color you are. That is not self-defense. And as the facts bear out in this police report, I'm pretty sure this kid is not going to get off on this, again, if those witnesses say that, yeah, that's what happened. Now looking at the actual arrest report, you can see that Mr. Anthony here is 130 pounds, 5'9". Not real sure where they put under ethnicity. They put an N right there. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny when I say this, but what does the N stand for? I'm not saying what it stands for. I'm not saying what I think it stands for. I'm not saying what they might think it stands for. I'm asking, what does the N stand for under ethnicity? I mean, I'm thinking that if this were my police report, my arrest report, next to ethnic, they would probably say W. Again, I'm not saying that they use these terms correctly as far as ethnicity and race, because a lot of times they interchange them and they're wrong about it. I just like to know what the N stands for. Now, throughout most of this report, you're going to get a lot of what we already stated, that he claimed that he was the one who did it. He said, I'm not alleged, I did it. He also stated he put his hands on me. I told him not to. Again, that's not, he's admitting that to the local law enforcement. So I don't think that's going to look good as far as, oh wait, you had a chance to leave, but instead you provoked him and told him, put your hands on me, a dare. And of course it does state here that he asked if he was okay, indicating remorse. Now go to the next page, and this is where things are going to get a little wild. Of course, you see it says the suspect was crying hysterically, and this is likely after he asked if he was okay. I think he was pronounced dead at the hospital. So at this point, Anthony didn't know if he had actually killed Metcalf, but again, they do say that he was crying hysterically. But look down here. The officer on scene were informed that the knife was tossed and was still believed to be somewhere close. Well, they found it. It was only a couple of rows back. But I have to repeat this. If you are defending yourself, why would you throw the weapon you use, no matter what it is, away? If somebody attacks me and I'm carrying my firearm, which I do every single day, and I have to put a little lead in them, I don't run to a bridge and throw my firearm into the river. That's not normal activity of somebody defending themselves. And don't give me this about his age. Why would anyone of any age think, if I'm right and everything I'm doing is right, that I need to dispose of the evidence? That's not a normal thing regardless of age. If the neighbor's dog jumps the fence and attacks a child in the backyard and the child has to whack the dog in the head with a stick, does the child go hide the stick or go tell mom, hey, I just had to use a stick to whack the neighbor's dog in the head because the dog attacked me. Yeah, self-defense usually is not met with hiding the evidence. Next page shows that he said to law enforcement, "Touch me and see what happens." You cannot tell me that's not a dare. And you can't tell me that that was not a fork in the road at that point and somebody could have made a decision, meaning Mr. Anthony himself, instead of saying, "Touch me and see what happens," or retreating. Which would have been the better thing to do? Now, I know ego and your manhood is at risk right here, but which one of those would have been the better decision? And both of them were on the list of things that Mr. Anthony could have chosen to do, and he chose the wrong one. Another witness stated that Anthony went over and Metcalf did not know who he was, walked over and sat under their tent, then said Austin, the victim, told this male that since he did not go to Memorial High School, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth, and then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. This witness said during this time of arguing, the male was reaching around in his bag that he had. It was at this time the male took out a knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. Now, I mentioned witnesses, several witnesses, but here are two right here that did more than just hear the suspect admit to stabbing the victim. Lakeisha Collin, Independence High School coach, witnessed the whole incident, and Mindy Yeatman, Independence High School coach, witnessed the incident. Now, these are coaches from different schools altogether. Neither one of the schools that either Metcalf or Anthony went to. That's not what this school is. It's a third school, actually. So you could consider this to be independent at this point. Now, according to police report, a Memorial coach approached the law enforcement and informed them that he was with a student who claimed to have seen the entire altercation. According to law enforcement, they told the coach to stick with the student, that he would need to get him in the police station to give a statement. The student quickly informed him that he knew where the suspect threw the knife and pointed him into the location. He located the knife and could see blood on the knife. So I don't think any of this is going to bode very well for this young man, Anthony. Again, choices. Doesn't matter what color your parents are. Doesn't matter what ethnicity your parents are. Doesn't matter if their ethnicity is N or W or X. Doesn't matter what it is. A good tip for parenting, for those of you out there who are looking for some parenting advice. Explain to your children what a fork in the road is. That's a place to make a decision. You either go here or you go here. Both destinations have consequences. When you choose the one road that seems like the cowardly way out, you can literally live to see another day. You're almost guaranteed that. But when you choose, because your ego won't let you walk away, to try to confront somebody, try to fuel a bad situation, the destination on that fork in the road and that path also has consequences. And in many cases, you ain't going to like them. If you live to see another day, it might be a day that you're not happy in. And I believe that's what happened in this instance. I also think that we're probably going to see some character things come out, like coaches, things like that. You notice none of his own coaches, Anthony's coaches, have come out in support of him. Not saying they don't support him. I'm not saying that Anthony is a super bad guy because they haven't come out. But none of them have come out and said officially, that was a good kid. I don't know why this happened or anything like that. You usually hear that. None of them have come out in his defense. I guess in the coming days, because this has happened a few days ago, in the coming days, maybe that happens. But at this point, the people closest, and many times, unfortunately, closest to the child is the coach. Closer in some cases than parents are. So I'm curious to see what the coaches have to say about this young man. Now, I will say this. According to Amelia Mugavero with CBS 11, this is, I guess, a local station in the area, new information about the investigation into the stabbing death of a 17-year-old Frisco student athlete. CBS News Texas has learned from law enforcement sources involved in the investigation that 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony, pictured to the left, I don't have his picture here, the suspect in the murder of a 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, had previously been suspended for what? Bringing a knife to school. I guess he didn't ditch it that time. Law enforcement sources tell us that 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony should have been in class at Sentinel High School and was skipping school yesterday when he allegedly stabbed Austin Metcalf following an altercation. We have not received a response from Frisco ISD to that information. So this is law enforcement stating that. They have a record of that. This is not an allegation. The only way this is not true is if the law enforcement agency lied to the news reporter. Or the news reporter's making it up. But she's stating where specifically she got it from. So we have a young man that's already known for carrying a knife with him. It's kind of odd that this time he chose to ditch it. Why? Because he got in trouble the last time he got caught with it. This time he murdered somebody. Hey, let's throw it away. Self-defense. I got you, self-defense. Now, I mentioned earlier the race hustlers. It doesn't take them long. Remember Michael Brown? Hands up, don't shoot. He reached in the car, grabbed the guy who was beating the cop, and then the cop shot him, and they said, oh, poor Mike, 300-pound teddy bear. Yeah, he earned his dirt nap that day. But they can't make any money, just like the gun groups that I told you about, the anti-gun groups. If there's nothing for them to fundraise on, they don't raise any funds. They have to create something where there's nothing. Remember we talked about the police report that had the N on there for ethnicity for Mr. Anthony? Okay, how long do you think it will take the race baiters and the race pimps and the race hustlers to say that Metcalf used the N-word? Not long. Not long at all. Black Enterprise, which is some outfit online that I found, state what kind of parents, talking about Metcalf's parents, raise a child who allegedly called another student the N-word. Reports circulating on social media suggest that Metcalf hurled that word at Anthony. If true, that wasn't just a word, it was a weapon! Now we got our self-defense. A centuries-old threat. A verbal heirloom of white dominance, sharpened to remind black children of their place in American society. Notice they say circulating on social media. You know where it's not circulating? In the police reports from all the witnesses, adults, children, everybody there. No one heard the N-word, although law enforcement are saying that Anthony was an N as far as ethnicity goes. Not one credible mention of the N-word, except circulating on social media. That's credible. That's credible, man. You might want to track that source down, because these words, that phrase, that accusation will never be mentioned again if there's nothing there. And again, no witnesses are repeating that. So at this point, we're going to assume that is a lie. They went on the state talking about Metcalf's parents. Are they the kind of white parents who share back the blue posts and said Kyle Rittenhouse was just protecting himself when he brought a weapon of war to a protest? Do they keep a Trump flag in the garage and rifles in the truck? What were those dinner table conversations like? Did they call it just joking when the N-word slipped out? Or was it said the same venom Austin allegedly used? Allegedly used. Notice how they say bringing Kyle Rittenhouse into this and saying that he was just protecting himself when he brought a weapon of war to a protest. Your boy Anthony brought a knife to a school track meet. No one was asking anyone to come protect the school track meet. Kyle Rittenhouse had a firearm and was hired to protect a car lot. That's why he was there. That's why he was armed. And he protected himself when people attacked him. Weird little side note, Rittenhouse only fired 3 shots and he managed to hit 3 pedophiles with 3 shots. These Democrats' odds are not looking good as far as their preferences and their social settings, if you know what I mean. So to bring Rittenhouse into this is just stupid. It's trying to project where there's nothing. They're trying to create something where there's nothing. They're trying to find something that was out there in pop culture that got people riled up. And Kyle Rittenhouse is a perfect place to do it. But anybody who knows the actual Rittenhouse details knows that this is stupid. It's not even a stretch because it doesn't even apply here. But to state, do they keep a Trump flag in the garage and rifles in the truck? You know what that tells me? That tells me that the black author who wrote this, and some of you are likely going to get upset that I use this word, I don't care, because there's a proper application to the word slave, willful slave. When you choose to be brainwashed by somebody and you choose to repeat the things they tell you to say, and you choose to let somebody else think for you, you are a willful slave. The author of this report and this comment right here is a willful and useful slave, because we all know that Trump is not a racist. We all know that. If you want to put two people side by side like Trump and Biden, you tell me which one had a mentor who was actually the Grand Cyclops of the KKK and which one wasn't. Trump is not a racist. These people are still doing that, which means they are letting somebody else think for them, which means this guy is a slave. He goes on to state, should we call Austin Metcalf no angel? The way they did Mike Brown. Mike Brown was a piece of crap. So this nullifies his argument right there. Should we point to the photos of him flashing weapons and middle fingers? What he's referring to is there's a picture out there online of Austin Metcalf and his brother holding AR-15s wearing camouflage. You know what you use camouflage for, right? And AR-15s. To hunt. That was likely a hog hunt, a deer hunt, probably a hog hunt. They're referring to this as a reason why he's a bad guy. But we're not talking about or referring to the photos of Mr. Anthony not in hunting clothes, or at least not hunting animals. Yeah, we see the same thing, and we're not talking about that. Friends, we can't let the left dictate what the narrative is. When this story first came out, a lot of people asked me my thoughts on it. And at the time, I didn't have a thought on it because I thought to myself, kids doing stupid things again. And it's very unfortunate. It's a horrible situation. I think we have all the facts in this case. I think we know what happened. And I think we can ask ourselves a couple things. First of all, does self-defense apply? I think it's a resounding no. Could Mr. Metcalf have done something to de-escalate? Probably. But that would have, we got two young egos driven by all this testosterone, and both of them don't want to back down. I think especially all of us who were young men in high school can kind of understand that, especially knowing that Anthony was the one who initiated this whole thing by coming over to the wrong tent on purpose. At that point, you have been challenged by that person who was wrong. As Metcalf, you don't just give in. I think it never needed to escalate to using a weapon. But whenever you look at who was wrong to initiate this whole thing, yeah, you could sit here and say all day that Metcalf could have just turned the other cheek. Really? Let's not just remove all the blame from everybody here. Let's look at the fact that there were choices made by both parties. And the first choice was made, the first bad choice, was made by Anthony. Second bad choice might have been made by Metcalf. Again, I understand where he was coming from. I wouldn't have turned the other cheek either. I would have told him to get the hell out of there. Saying, touch me and you'll find out, was another bad move by Anthony. You've already been met by opposition in an unfriendly area that you went to start a fight. Why keep pushing unless you want a fight? Third bad decision, pull a knife. Fourth bad decision, use the knife. If we're keeping score here, I would say it's 4-1, but trust me when I tell you that the score doesn't matter. It's the final result that matters. And this is a horrible, horrible situation. There are two families affected right here, and these two families will never fully get over this. At least I hope they don't. I know the Metcalf family won't, but I hope the Anthony family doesn't either. Because if they do, that means they can easily put this behind them. And I'd like to think better of the family to think that this is always going to haunt them. Their son took somebody else's life. That's a horrible thing to live with. I couldn't imagine having a young man in his early teens or mid-teens do something like this, and he has to live the rest of his life possibly being new fish in prison, right? He's going to learn how to braid some hair really fast. So this is a horrible situation for these families, and I feel for them. I feel for the parents of both families because both have essentially lost a son. And that has got to hit both of them right here hard. And I would never want to be the ones having to deal with that. Lastly, I will tell you the most troubling thing, and this might seem really weird to look at this, and I guess it's just the picturing of it in my mind. The hardest thing for me reading through this police report was one of the last things that I read whenever they were finishing up in the hospital after pronouncing Mr. Metcalf as deceased. It states at 13:37 hours, nurses from the hospital bagged Austin into a body bag. What a horrible way to describe the ending of a young man's life who likely had a lot ahead of him. Maybe it's a figurative thing that we can use going forward, looking at the fact that Anthony is essentially in his own body bag now. He's in a state that's never going to be normal again for him. Nurses from the hospital bagged Austin in a body bag. That's a tough one, man. Let me know your thoughts below. Love to know what you guys think. Am I wrong here? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm looking at this from the wrong angle? Do you think I'm going too easy on Mr. Anthony? Do you think I'm too hard on Mr. Anthony? I think that I'm a pretty fair person. And situations like this, I have been around people who were hot-headed, and I always distance myself from people like this.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.